Well, Lucy, thanks for talking with Coast Community News. It has been a big year for everyone. How has it been for you?
Well, it's been an incredible year actually. When we look back at 2020, I think, we started with all of the thick black smoke that covered the Central Coast and the news of bushfires around the region, including, on the outskirts of the Central Coast as well. And that was a very, very challenging time. We had floods here in February, and then in March, the news of COVID and the many restrictions that were required of us at that time to get Australia through to where we are now. It's been an incredible year of challenge. People have lost their jobs. People have found this year very difficult. People have had to deal with a whole lot of restrictions. But, at the same time, I think there's been a great sense of hope. People have really been looking after one another around Australia, and particularly here on the Central Coast, our Central Coast community. We are finding that, jobs are returning again to the economy. We are finding that in many areas, including here on the Central Coast, there are many businesses that are succeeding and doing very, very well. And so that these are signs of hope. This is great news for our community. But of course, we can't be complacent. And the events of recent days have actually demonstrated that. And I really want to thank the people of the Central Coast for their willingness to work together as a community, their willingness to keep each other safe, keep all of us safe. We're all in this together. And, the restrictions that are being asked of us again, even in the lead up to Christmas. I know that if we work together and we all honour these restrictions in the spirit in which they're intended, we're going to get through on the other side stronger together.
So, an announcement has been released by the Premier about new COVID restrictions. Do you have any message you'd like to send to the Central Coast residents?
Well, we know that over the last several days, we've heard a lot of news discussions about the COVID-19 outbreak from the Northern Beaches. We know that there has been experience here on the Central Coast where I might just start that again, actually. It's not really experience. We'll start that again.
So there's been an announcement by the Premier for COVID restrictions that have been coming into place. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what it means for residents?
Well, over the last several days, we've been hearing in the news a lot about the COVID-19 outbreak on the Northern Beaches. We know the Central Coast has been also touched by the COVID-19 outbreak and that we are not immune. And what is being asked of us at the moment is to limit our gatherings in households, particularly to no more than 10 visitors to a household over the day, particularly for Christmas and around the Christmas celebrations. We're being asked until the 27th. Children under 12 are not included in that limit of 10 visitors, but that restriction will return to 10 after the 27th. What we're being asked of at this time is to be really mindful about hand hygiene, wearing masks when in public, particularly when out and about shopping, maintaining a 1.5 metre distance, returning to the pre-existing rules of 4 square metres indoors as well, and just being mindful of all of these things to keep one another safe. We will get through this together. We have some of the best testing regimes in Australia here in New South Wales. I want to commend the leadership of Gladys Berejiklian and of course the Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The way they've steered us through 2020 has been nothing short of exceptional. But, part of the reason of the success of their leadership is actually the willingness of Australians to be able to respond to the restrictions that are being asked of us at this time. It's not easy in the lead up to Christmas. We know that it's going to require some tough decisions for many people who may have already planned their Christmas celebrations or even their New Year's Eve celebrations, but we're asking everyone, for the sake of our community and for the sake of other people's safety, to observe these restrictions at this time. The updates can be found on the New South Wales Health website, and I'd encourage people to continue to monitor those as they do change daily in response to the COVID-19 situation.
Just changing gears slightly, a lot of money has been put into the Medical Institute at Gosford Hospital. When do you think that's going to open?
Oh, this is so exciting. This $72.5 million investment in a Central Coast medical school and also medical research institute. If you drive by down the road where where the train station is. It's directly opposite that, and you can see the green car park. And on top of that, the Medical Research Institute in the university building is under construction at the moment. They will start taking their first intake of students, I believe, from second semester next year. This is underway. This is a reality. It does mean that students studying here on the Central Coast can look forward to also pursuing tertiary education if they choose in something like nursing or medicine. They can choose to pursue it locally right here in Gosford, and it's a world-class campus.
And in regards to PEP 11, Jason Polinsky, your colleague, supports the cancellation of the licence. What is your position?
Well, firstly, I think I'd like to actually explain probably some of the situation around this debate of PEP 11, because there's a cacophony of misinformation that is out there. Many people have written to me saying, why didn't you support a vote in Parliament about PEP 11? The answer is very simple. There was no vote. There was no vote on PEP 11 in the Parliament. And some people say to me, well, what are you going to do about offshore drilling in the PEP 11 permit area? Well, my response to that is that I am completely against anything that does harm to our environment, particularly our great ocean environment here on the Central Coast. But the process around the permit of PEP 11 is one that has been long established. The permit area has been around for around 50 years. The current permit holder has held that licence for around 20 years. And what they are seeking at the moment is to vary their licence condition. And that process, that request is currently before what is known as the Joint Authority. There is a New South Wales, from the New South Wales Government and the Federal Government. It's currently before the New South Wales Government. Once that decision is made, it will be forwarded to the Federal Government for their decision as well. But this is not an application for drilling per se. This is simply an application to vary a licence that has been held for around 20 years. We have some of the best regulations in the world around this, particularly in relation to the environment. And this regulation is done by an independent expert regulator, one of the best, most stringent in the world. And I trust the science behind what they do. I trust the fact that they are an independent expert authority. I absolutely trust that. But I also advocate for my community, and I also know how important our environment here is in the Central Coast. I'm a great lover of our beautiful environment. I'm a great lover of our ocean environment, and I'm not going to support anything that does any harm to our environment. I have spoken with the Office of the Prime Minister about the concerns of my community, and I have also spoken with the Minister responsible for this particular decision in relation to the concerns of my community, and I will continue to do so. But the cacophony of misinformation that is out there is very misleading. It does not actually convey the facts as they actually are. And what I want to be able to do is to faithfully represent the concerns of my community in an environment where the facts are fully known, where the process is absolutely robust, and where we can be assured of the science behind the process as well.
So you would say that you're kind of just waiting until there's a little bit more information to come out about the whole process before you actually have a definite decision, or are you just going to wait until for the federal parliament to decide on the decision?
So the decision. So there's. I'll try and explain that there's a couple of different processes if this helps. The first request. The challenge we've got is the cacophony of misinformation that has snowballed, where you've actually just and you've actually just said to me, I said there was no vote in the Parliament, and you've actually just given a very good example as to why this cacophony is a concern. The decision is not made by a vote in the Parliament. There are two things that I think are of concern on the table. The first is the variation of the licence condition. That's not a vote of the Parliament. That is a decision by the Joint Authority. The Joint Authority is made up of the relevant state minister, in this case John Barilaro, the relevant federal minister, in this case Keith Pitt. So that is a decision that is made by them, not a vote of the Parliament. The second issue is whether there would be any offshore drilling, bearing in mind that, to the best of my knowledge, as I sit here today, there is no application before NOPSEMA, the independent expert regulator, for offshore drilling. So that is actually, if you like, a second process, separate to a variation of the licence condition, but a second process. That decision is not made by a vote in the Parliament either. That decision is made by the independent regulator, one of the most stringent independent expert regulators in this area in the world. Now, if that took place, if we look at a hypothetical, if that process is underway, what would happen is the relevant title holder, in this case Asset Energy, I believe, would actually have to submit a plan including environmental assessment to NOPSEMA. And before NOPSEMA, as part of that whole process, there is a requirement for community consultation on that specific plan. There's no environmental assessment plan before NOPSEMA that I'm aware of, and so there are a variety of separate processes, separate steps, if you like, that I think people have wrapped up into a bundle and said these are happening all at once. And I think that's what's causing a lot of the concern, a lot of the misinformation that's out there. And I think it probably makes people concerned about something which they have a right to be concerned about, but which probably needs to be unpicked, because a lot of the information that is out there is not actually accurate. That variation of licence condition is a separate process. I think I've explained this, separate process to any application for drilling or anything else that may be then presented to an independent regulator. Does that make sense? One is for a variation of the licence condition, that's done by the joint authority. And then if in theory there was to be any application for drilling, that goes before an independent regulator, NOPSEMA. As part of that process, we've actually strengthened the requirements around public consultation so that the requirements around that are even greater, and that any issues raised by the community is taken into account as part of that and as part of that process. So, but there is no application that I'm aware of that would actually trigger that second separate process. The only application that I'm aware of is the application to vary the licence conditions, and that is before what's called the joint authority. So different to the independent regulator, but they're known as the joint authority, the New South Wales State and the and the federal minister.
Okay.
Hopefully that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, good. Thank you.